Welcome to Yellow Table Talk, a podcast for women professionals interested in climate change. No climate experience necessary. My name is Michelle Lee, and I'm the co-founder of Women in Climate. My background is in software sales, and I've worked for some of the biggest companies in Silicon Valley and pivoted into climate in 2021. Together with my co-founder Stephanie Corbally, we have created one of the largest virtual and in-person communities for women interested in climate change, with over 7,000 members in our Slack channel and active members across Asia, Middle East, Africa, North America, South America, and Europe. Head over to our website to learn more, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. All right, I am excited today because I'm here with Julia Souder, who's based in San Francisco. And Julia has a long career in the energy space, from her time at the Department of Energy to her current role as CEO of the Long Duration Energy Storage Council. Welcome to Yellow Table Talk, Julia.
Thank you, Michelle. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's always great to hang out.
I agree. So at the podcast, we like to open with what beverage we're enjoying at the quote-unquote yellow table. So Julia, what are you having today?
I like to toast you with my green juice.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, what's in your green juice?
A combination, and this is store-bought. I did not have time to do the smoothie thing, but it's kale and cucumber and, spinach and many other wellness goodies to capture the vitamins and minerals we need.
Amazing. I will toast you back.
Like energy.
Yeah, that's right. It is green. I'm going to toast you back, ironically, with my green tea, sencha tea. It's hot, just brewed, and I'm looking forward to enjoying the episode and our talk and having a little green tea.
Lovely.
So, Julia, let's hear a little bit about yourself.
Where to start? No, I really love what I do. And I think that comes through the work path that I've had, which has not been a straight line. And I think it's been really meeting the people along the way who've really helped inspire me and also really challenge me. And I think when I started in the energy world, I think I took it for granted at how much our communities, our families, our friends kind of take this for granted. We flip a switch in our house, or we have, heater power if we're lucky enough to have that. And, where does it come from? And then who and how are we paying for that? And so I was very fortunate to fall into the Department of Energy by being a presidential management fellow. I was able to see different offices and how they worked with policies and advocacy and research and development. And I was really inspired by the passion of people feeling they can make a difference. And that really led me into a commitment to working in a variety of sectors that touch the energy world, to looking at how you build things and transmission. Why is a transmission line so important? And I love, my kids now know what a 230 kV line is in a substation. Like, that is very fun to have that game of what is that line or distribution line. But it also, seeing wind turbines and solar panels and, looking at, traditional energy plants, gas plants, coal plants, just seeing how this was a huge part of our economy and what we're transitioning to. And when I used to talk about my job in DC, people would just look at me and say, what is that again? What are you doing? And now, and today in our conversations, it's really exciting because people say, oh, yes, yeah, I understand battery storage. It's like in my phone or my home or my car, or it's in my community, it's my hospital. It's that backup power we need, because now I understand what happens when the lights go out or we don't have power, or, transitioning, working with my friends in different countries, starting with a whole new plan. We want to have this new future for us that doesn't rely on these other, fuels or packets. It's more like this new creation. So the creation part has been so inspirational. So I'm excited to be part of kind of a global community that's really working hard to see this transition of how we're going to address, the changing climate that we're all feeling. Like, every single person is dealing with a changing world, and the adaptability that we have to face and the tools of how we get there is what's exciting. So the different hats of policy maker, regulator, founder, entrepreneur, researcher, kind of all these different components have really led me to where I am today. So I'm grateful for the opportunities.
One thing that you said really resonated. We take energy for granted. we live in a time where it's a given, it's in abundance for the most part. It's baked into the budget, but there are folks out there that don't even have access to energy, and hopefully that's going to change in the future. But thank you for kind of putting that in the space. And as well, you also mentioned battery, which like typically when people mention energy, I think, I don't know, like I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's like plugging something into a wall, right? I don't typically associate like batteries with energy, but it is obviously a big part of energy, and that's part of why we're here today.
Right.
So when we talk about energy, we often talk about the energy transition, right? Going from fossil fuel-based energy to solar and clean and wind energy. But there's less talk about energy storage and batteries. And we don't really hear about LDES. I know this because I know you, long duration energy storage. Can you tell us about LDES and why it's important?
It's a great question. And I love that I get asked this every day because it makes the job even more fun, because it really talks about why we need long duration storage and what it does. There are 4 families of long duration storage, and I like to kind of categorize them of, when we have that, our power coming through the wall, if you're lucky to have that, and, it's coming continuously. Well, if you're depending on a variable resource like renewables, wind and solar, it doesn't come all the time. And so how do you fill those gaps? And so that's why you need storage to capture it and then use it to fill the gaps, called energy shifting. So we have different methods to do that, which is great because different customers, different parts of the world, different communities need different kind of tools. So we have a tool called like a thermal battery, a heat battery, or ice battery that can hold in different times of mediums, the power heat over days, weeks, months, years. I mean, we're talking 8 hours, 48 hours, 100 hours. And this is great because it actually is our kind of our fuel reserve. And we can hold this in different elements, environmentally safe elements like zinc, vanadium, magnesium, lithium. I mean, there's all these different kind of components that we work in. We work in kind of the gravity component of people are very familiar with pumped hydro, but there's also kind of compressed air and liquid air, like carbon, and that you can store in caverns or domes for weeks, months, 20 hours. Again, there's flexibility here that we're really providing. So that's what storage is giving to this energy transition. It's actually such a keystone component of making sure that when we make this transition to clean energy, that we can have it around the clock. We can have it 24/7. Because right now it costs a lot to do this, and we fill it in with gas and coal and other things around the world, but we don't have to. We can use long duration storage, which is amazing.
Yeah. And you mentioned that there's kind of 4 categories of how we think about it. Can you just kind of summarize those 4 categories?
Sure. So chemical, the power to X is looking at hydrogen, ammonia, methane, like storing it instead of as a fuel, but as a kind of in a container or pipeline. And then you've got the mechanical, the gravity components, the pumped hydro, the kind of the moving things up and down, the compressed air, the liquid air. And then you've got the electrochemical. So these are all the elements on the periodic table that can be put to good use, whether flow batteries, air batteries, metal oxide batteries. Like there's all these different technologies, again, that can be modular and stackable that depend on where you are. A lot of the compressed and mechanical can be above ground or underground. And then thermal, this is the heat or cooling to capture waste heat and to store it and then reuse as power. Many industrial customers, like whether they're looking at Pepsi or Lay's, capture waste heat and then reuse that in their factory. So they reduce emissions and they have a huge savings. And if they have excess that they're not using in their factory, they can sell back to the grid in many countries where the market works. And so yes, again, it's the thermal, the rocks, the salts, the heat, the mechanical, the moving up and down, and then our in air and caverns, the electrochemical, all the different types of kind of minerals and batteries, and then also the chemical, so the hydrogen and gases.
Perfect. That is a great way to kind of think about the different types of LDES and storage in general. And as you were kind of talking through some of the pieces, you were mentioning zinc, and just a shout out to our Women in Climate book club led by our volunteer, Maria Tucker, because we're actually, this iteration of the book club, we're reading the book Charged by James Morton Turner. So I'm learning so much about zinc, about lead, about recycling, and about the industry. And it's great to kind of double click and talk about some of those concepts here with you as well, Julia. So
one mineral I didn't mention that I want to flag is iron too, just because we've got a lot of iron that's, you can do iron flow, iron air, and it also can be stored for hours to, from 28 to 24 to even 100. So again, that flexibility is so key. So love to shout out to the book. There's so many great books being written by colleagues about storage.
And then LDES specifically, the long duration energy storage is anything above 8 hours. Is that right?
Yes, to meet that flexibility and really to kind of highlight the changes in the market. We've got to update the criteria so more of these LDES technologies can provide benefits, and whether it's capacity, resource adequacy, whether it's a variety of ancillary services. But that's where the 8 hours it really can show that shifting.
So what are some of the major applications for LDES? Can you give us some examples of exciting projects that are currently in the works or recently completed?
It's so exciting. Just in the last few weeks, we're having tons of announcements from members, whether on islands and working for replacing backup diesel generators, whether it's working with data centers on giving them that 20-hour plus reliability, whether it's the working in, we've had announcements for industrial customers working in Europe or US. And, there have been nonstop kind of announcements of these projects, really demonstrating that LDES is not 10 years away. It's actually deployed and working. We just need to scale it. I spent the last 8 weeks in Europe touring many of our members' factories, seeing actually whether it's a container or different batteries being built or different components for mechanical and compressed air and liquid air going out the door to customers' project and to meet their needs. So it's very exciting to see applications, whether it's in airports, ports. We have members that are working, helping the charging stations and being the backup power for charging for electric vehicles or electrification of communities. And we have members that are, working with a variety of community centers or, whether fire stations, indigenous nations. So projects have been deployed, whether it's also, a variety of factories and manufacturing. So it's pretty exciting to see, again, the diverse technologies meeting diverse customer needs around the world. But we could see a lot more if the market was changing to really open up the doors to all the benefits that LDES can provide. And it's not just grid, it's also off-grid too. So it's just kind of agriculture, and chemical plants. A lot of different areas.
Okay. So an opening of doors in the future implies that certain doors are closed now and today. So what are some of the headwinds or challenges that the industry is facing?
In Europe, for example, our thermal energy storage members can compete today on the grid if they want to be connected. They can sell that excess power I mentioned earlier once their customers have used what they need. Those signals are there. In the United States, they are not. So, changing the wholesale market would be a huge win for customers to lower price, but also just to meet other needs. In Australia, there's been a lot of momentum, and just recently they've increased the amount of LDES needed by 2030 because of the renewable penetration and the retirement of fossil fuel plants earlier. And so setting these market signals to say these are the needs, these are what we, how we're going to deploy them in the timelines, this really helps, really amplify the role of long duration storage. It secures more financing, so then we can actually scale the commercialization so we can really get the numbers to be where they need to at. We're shooting for 140 terawatt hours globally. That's terawatt hours by 2040, and we are still in the gigawatt hours. So we have some work to do. But it's great to see that not only Australia, United Kingdom, Spain, Germany, Italy, they've already set market signals. They've opened some mandates, even public-private financing. The U.S. has started this too. There were over 11 projects financed over the last few years from public-private partnerships, state and federal funding. And we're looking forward to seeing the final, construction and deployment of all of these by, end of this year and early next year. And so that's also going to really help kind of amplify the role that LDES plays in the clean energy transition.
Well, then on the flip side, Julia, what are some of the tailwinds and opportunities that you're seeing right now?
I think it's a new awareness that the LDES is actually a real tool and solution. And I think now it's not just new members joining us because they want to learn about LDES. They want to sign contracts and deploy. We have a couple members that have continued to improve and emphasize the way contracts are created, not just a traditional power purchase agreement, but really kind of looking at how do we match, a 24/7 around the clock to really pick up that flexibility tool, and how do we work with operators and utilities to give them, the power that they need to really run a reliable grid. And as I mentioned, Australia's headwind of just increasing their energy targets by 50%, just having the market signals, and about flexibility in the EU, additional funding for thermal energy storage. And we're also seeing, we have a global storage target of 1.5 terawatts by 2030. And many countries that are looking at how do they take this target and how do they make it their own, working with ministers and energy officials and decision makers on how to really adapt criteria to help empower them to really build the system that they need, has been happening this last year, which is fantastic. Because I'd say 5 years ago, there was a huge learning curve of how storage played a role. And today there's a value add because there's a huge need. And so this is great to kind of see just the pivot that's happening.
Yeah. Back to something that maybe, was more in the challenges of the industry. I'm just curious, Julia, how much of that rare earths, whether it's availability or cost, how big of a role is that playing in LDES? Is it something that's talked about a lot or not so much?
No, what's really great about LDES is, we're using existing supply chains, so there isn't a huge hurdle to overcome of supply chain barriers because we're using these very environmentally safe, very abundant materials that are accessible, as recycled materials, and kind of keeping that circularity involved. That's not a huge cost. I said the cost is more of just kind of the initial CapEx. And then once you get past that, the OpEx goes down. I mean, the savings start really coming. If we get to this 140 terawatt hours deployed, you can see $540 billion a year in savings. I mean, this is huge, but we need to get to that scale to really get these benefits. And I think that's one of the barriers, is really making sure we have the financing. There's been a pause, I'd say, kind of globally about with this uncertainty that we're all feeling constantly. How do we kind of push and pull in this marketplace? And I think if we give some more foundational support to investors, because there's tons of money out there, it just needs to be, flowing again. Once that starts, I think we'll start to see a lot more, adaptability. And I think one of the ways we're working with financial industry, organizations and, government agencies, but, various institutions about how to feel more comfortable, working at insurance warranty policies, working at the right criteria, and really making sure that there is a win-win on all sides and then a win for the customer. So having more conversations about how to update the criteria for our financing is happening in real time. We'll be doing it in New York Climate Week. We just did it in London. And this is already, I think, opening up doors to a little bit more sense of certainty, kind of really trying to de-risk the conversations and show the value add of long-duration storage.
An off-the-cuff question a bit here, Julia, but just looking at LDES manufacturers, right? Like long energy storage manufacturers, are we looking at well-established companies, or is there a fair amount of startups that are popping up to get us to 140 terawatts? Is this traditional or is this more of a new industry?
It's a combination. And that's why the council is an ecosystem of kind of all of the above. So we have the data centers, AWS, Microsoft, Google. We also encompass, and we have, traditional energies. So we have Exxon, Oxy, Shell, Total. We've got, SLB, Rio Tinto. So we have the mining. We have Vopak. We've got Ørsted, M&A investors. So we've got Neom. So we have Alfa Laval. So we have these, anchor members who are really looking at, I want to own, operate, invest. They invested in a lot of our members. We have utilities, Renew in India, NG, ESB. And then we have a lot of the technologies that have that diverse portfolio of the different families. I'm showing the different durations and different types. And some of them, I know BASF have been around forever. Technip FMC, they've kind of transitioned their existing portfolios that they've built, their decades on of experience maybe in traditional energy to today's world. We've also got a lot of these technologies that were in the lab for 20 years or on the shelf in universities and have now, the need is there. So there's been a huge kind of push and investment in this, which is really exciting. And I think the innovation continues to come out with, even AI helping look at new ways to do this and expediting the process. But at the same time, none of this is brand new. It's based on basic natural components, which I think is also really powerful to kind of show the simplicity and, the low cost savings. I mean, again, there's so much affordability that can come with long duration storage being deployed, and that we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
Got it. You mentioned some interesting use cases like airports and data centers, Julia. I wonder if you could, because like most of us, including myself, are new to this space. How would an airport benefit from LDES? How would a data center benefit from LDES? Like, to a beginner, can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure. No, it's exciting. This is what I love because it's real world. This is happening right now. So we have a member, ESS, that's got one of their airflow batteries deployed in Amsterdam at the airport, and it's working to, kind of replace their backup diesel generators that sit there as they like power the planes while they're waiting. They don't have to have that, and just decreases the emissions. It helps the workers' health. Like there's so much great benefit and lowers the cost. They're not having to pay for all that expensive fuel. And so this is great that they can just pull from the grid and even pull from existing solar. So there's optionality here. We have, another, our members that are, working on, gosh, there's like so many the case studies that we're pulling forward to share with, but we've got, Kraft Block working with Lay's potato chips and just kind of, again, capturing the waste heat and reusing it in their, steam process and using it for the process. We have Bren Miller working with Yara Fertilizer. I mean, these are just pieces of it. We've got, different deployments in California working with, fire stations, just powering is for a community center. So if people lose their power, they can go there and, build their community components. And that's with, Infinity's vanadium battery. So you've got an EOS's zinc. So there's like this nice kind of hybridization happening too. Data centers, there's a variety of needs that we've been talking about, helping with lower grid costs, grid congestion fees. And you're just really getting that. If we can do hybridization of bringing LDES on with a data center construction, there's a lot of cost savings there and really kind of helping with the carbon goals, emissions reductions, and then also just that replacing backup diesel generators, and even giving that extra certainty. So if you already have an existing gas plant or diesel, but it costs so much, there's LDES to be a backup too. So there's also LDES for waste heat capture. A lot of data centers are very efficient, just with their air cooling, but there's additional ways that we can help, save there too, and energy work. So there's a lot of different options. I know QuidNet in Texas is working with a data center there and with a utility on what they need. Like, what are the signals to talk to each other and how do they do this? So it's really great to kind of see that, we've got different tools, different groups. I know Malta has a project in Spain that's already in the interconnection queue, like has a spot, it's already connected. Like this is already happening. So it's providing value. And we've also got, we've got our different projects that whether you're looking at XL Batteries just announced their project with data center. Terra Power just announced theirs with, it's kind of like a whole research facility. They'll have a data center, but they'll also be building other groups with it. You've got Rye Development with pumped hydro building in Kentucky to help with, grid congestion, but also, providing that certainty. I think it's just, again, showing how all these different companies are giving value add. And I know Technic FMC has been doing stuff with their fuel cells, and that's also giving those 100 hours, that certainty. And same with BASF with their sodium batteries. They've been deployed, working CATL, iBattery. These data centers around the world, it's not just in the US, and they all have very similar needs, but also depends on their local footprint. And so that adaptability, again, is really key. But yeah, we're providing reliable heat and power 24/7.
Amazing. A big job, but it sounds like we have the pieces in place. Julia, tell us a little bit about women's representation in the LDES workforce, and why should our listeners, women professionals, why should they be interested or excited about a career in LDES?
This is the future today. I mean, this is it. This is like every industry needs LDES. So it's so exciting to really be part of the transition because LDES is needed. And what is great is that you can join a company that has shared experience over the centuries, or you can join a company that is got a lot of experience, but is an innovative tech space where they want to, go start up to something different. So you have an opportunity to play so many different roles, which is so great for career advancement and development, to really wear those different hats to gain insight. And what really is personally exciting for me is that we have a great team at the LDES Council, and I'm thrilled to say that it's like 90% women. We have our great, board of men and women and our team of men and women, and really grateful to, to Will and our team of just like, sharing and really showing that diversity is important, but it really shows its diversity of thought to it, and really just being able to bring that to fruition. Our membership out of our current companies, over 12% are led by women CEOs. So that's pretty amazing. And 41 women in the whole membership hold C-level positions. And we really started to look at mentoring each other and helping, kind of mentoring women to women, but also just, women to men, and just this pair that is so critical. And so this is really exciting, just to kind of also with our partnerships, whether it's with WIRE, RISE, the Global Women's Energy Network, the World Bank, we have a lot of shared mentoring programs too, to really elevate the roles, the opportunities. And I personally not only get to, work with my staff and mentor them, and we mentor each other, but we also mentor colleagues in other programs too. So I think it's a great way to pay it back. So it's really exciting just to see, and can't wait to continue to support other organizations and really strengthening the opportunity of what women can bring.
That's awesome to hear that there's already some foundation of women leadership, and it's awesome that LDES is almost female-led, like entirely, which is fantastic. And it does sound like a really promising career and like an opportunity for job creation as well in this space. So that's amazing.
Michelle, can I say one thing on this? Because I get asked this all the time. And I think it's not like we're trying to attack or say one way is good or bad. We're just saying it's possible. Like an all-women team is amazing. Just having that integration, I think, is key. And I think we just need to find ways to support more women leadership, just so we can have this opportunity to be more flexible and insightful. It shouldn't be one way or the other way. It should just making sure that we have this platform to really raise the right people in the right jobs, and just, wow, they just happen to be amazing women too. So I just want to say, like, this is so important, just to elevate as many women as we can, but this is not an exclusion. It's more just making sure we open up doors to each other. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you for that, Julia. So what is some helpful vocabulary to have in your back pocket if you're working in the LDES industry? Like, what are your acronyms? What are some other terms that come up?
Well, long duration energy storage is such a fun one to say. So
yep.
Even though we sing the LDES song, and there is actually an anthem, which is hysterical. Yeah, maybe we can share that with you. But yes, it's, I think capacity, I think it's around the clock. And it really is looking at what LDES does. And it's just that those ancillary services. So it's the black start, it's inertia. Like we heard from the most recent blackout in the Iberian Peninsula, inertia was a key part. Well, LDES can provide inertia. Many of the technologies can do this. Capacity, filling in the gaps, flexibility, reliability, resiliency, and security. So even these high-level terms really tie close, but also, load following, I think it's frequency response. Like we can do all these things too. All these different ancillary services that we can provide, the shifting to fill in the gaps, congestion relief, kind of hybridization, that the permitting components that people think about with solar and wind and different components will bring LDES right in there too. It's this partnership that I would really highlight. And market changes. And if we want to get really nerdy with the regulations of the U.S. Federal Power Act, the updates to definitions. What does storage mean? Is it generation? Is it transmission? Is it distribution? It's all of the above. Mm-hmm. And then it's, again, thermal batteries, thermal storage, cool, ice storage. So salts, rocks, recycled materials. So kind of just showing that a lot of the conversations and genre that we speak about in the energy world really all connect well to LDES, amplifying again how foundational we are to all these different solutions into every industry.
Yeah, that's a lot of terms. And it's kind of funny how there's ones that we've heard of, yes, and then there's ones that are completely brand new. So thank you for sharing that. If our listeners want to learn more about LDES, what are some good resources? Where do you suggest they start?
We have a lot of resources on our website. We've got great reports kind of just giving LDES 101. There are videos too. And then within our membership, we do a lot more on the more criteria on bankability and benchmarking. But I'd also say that there are, there's the LDES Consortium in the United States that's been putting together a lot of great materials. We have a lot of partnership organizations working with the World Bank. We've been doing work with IEA on their thermal energy storage reports. With IRENA, we'll be hosting a webinar with them on storage. We have a lot of partner organizations like the Greening the Island, where we did a webinar on what islands need and how LDES plays a role. And then the Global Renewables Alliance that we're part of, we're co-founding members. This brings together the 6 global trade associations of wind, solar, geothermal, pumped hydro, green hydrogen, and long duration storage. And we have a lot of resources of case studies and reports and campaigns on our website there too. So I think it's also great to see, again, the synergies that we all come together. And I think it's very powerful to see our industries who once were super competitive are now working together to really show that all of us are needed for this clean energy transition.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those resources. And, there's a lot to learn. It's a technical industry and, lots of special kind of terms and vocabulary. But I feel like once you're in it, it becomes second nature, and it just takes time.
Yes. Just like if you're studying to become a doctor, there's a whole new language you have to learn. And same thing here.
Exactly.
But it's powerful.
No pun intended.
Voila. Nicely done, Michelle.
Yeah. I was listening. So, Julia, thank you so much for helping our listeners learn more about a different component to energy. Really appreciate your insights. And I want to switch gears to our Real Talk segment. YTT is a podcast for women professionals, regardless if you work in climate or not. And as we know, all careers and professions have their ups and downs. So do you have a win, a challenge, a story that has recently or is currently playing out in your personal or professional life that you want to put in this space and you think would resonate with our listeners?
I was thinking about how vulnerable to be, and I think vulnerability is really important. And as a global organization, there's a lot of travel. And at first, it's very exciting and very fun. But at times, it does wear on you. And I think I took for granted how much wear and tear it can do. And I think it's about realizing before it got too late about how to do the self-care and self-compassion. And those are hard for many of us. And I just think we've got to kind of look at it head on and just say, why is it hard for us and how do we work through it? And I love the self-compassion book I was listening to. It's very humbling. And then just, again, how important meditation, mindfulness, being grounded. And for me, because I really like to go fast and run fast, how important the yin and the yang, the pausing is. And on another piece to this is I think stress can be really dangerous. And when we are all really stressed, it can take us to a different degree. And I just would be more than happy in mentoring conversations to talk about this more. So I opened that door to ping me on LinkedIn and be more happy to kind of say how we can use more tools to help us. And I think one of the tools is finding an amazing coach. So I think no matter where you are in your career path or what level, always think about what kind of coach, whether it's an executive coach that you put in your contract to have, part of the, your well-being and also the company's well-being. But also if you're just starting out, how do you ask for leadership training, other skills, make sure that's part of what you want and where you want to go. It's a wonderful opportunity for everyone involved. And I think how we ask for this and how we support ourselves in this growth is going to be huge. And I just think building this community is so important going forward because it's going to get tougher. But as knowing we're all going through this is a wonderful kind of saving grace to us. Knowing how to address these challenges is wonderful learning opportunities. And even though it looks pretty ugly, knowing us together, we can change that to knowing how to work through it.
Well, I have kind of two things to follow up on that because to your, personal share around the tolls of travel, I can definitely, I face the same challenge. In fact, I went to see a Chinese doctor maybe last year, and he did an assessment and took my pulse and looked at my tongue and the color of my eyes and was like, you should not be traveling. In so many words, he was like, someone at your age should not be traveling the amount that you are. And it's really going to take a toll on your health. And I've been trying to internalize that. And for various reasons, I'm trying to support my family, my mom and dad here. Like if I'm traveling, I can't do that. So that resonates both on a personal level, and it is really fun in the beginning, right? And it still is fun, but obviously there are other implications as well, a lot of implications. So just wanted to make a remark on that. And then your just suggestion to hire a personal coach. We actually have an episode with a personal coach on Yellow Table Talk, Tiffany Turner. And so we talk about some of these, some of the things that you brought up as well. And I love that you mentioned negotiating in the support as part of your payment package when you're starting a job or when you're, in a job and you want additional support to like ask for it. It's not just mental health, it's personal development. And I think coaching is such an important component, but most of us don't really know that it exists, I feel like.
Right.
Or like invest in it. Like we'll drop $100,000 for an MBA, but we won't necessarily drop money for a coach. Like we haven't been conditioned to do that quite yet. And I think therapy has been an area that is newer, and people are starting to do that and see the benefits of that. And I think coaching is one of those pieces as well. So thank you for bringing that up. And I just want to say thank you so much, Julia, for your time today. It has been a wonderful conversation with both technical topics and, more of the soft skills and heart to heart. I love when a podcast can kind of bridge that divide and make some of these really technical topics more human because, there's a human behind the work there. So really appreciate you taking time. Julia is a member of the Women in Climate Speaker Database. She's available to speak at events, so make sure to keep her in mind for your future events. And Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michelle. As always, it's wonderful to chat with you. And you do an amazing job of bridging the technical with the humanity piece. And so you also really support an amazing group of women. And I really applaud you and all the work that you've done and just open the doors and highlight so many talented women that are in Women in Climate. So thank you for your network and thank you for your inspiration and thank you for your leadership.
Appreciate that, Julia. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Head over to www.womenandclimate.co to learn more about how to join and support our free community. And be sure to subscribe to Yellow Table Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Stay tuned for the next episode.